This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Let's talk about something people don't always like to admit. We look at someone's age, their height, their beard, their job, their apartment, and we just assume they must be mature. But here's the truth. Just because you're grown in body doesn't mean you're mature in soul. Some of us take longer to grow up on the inside, and pretending otherwise only makes the process harder. I want to break this open with you today. I want to talk about why maturity doesn't always come with age, why some of us feel like we're late bloomers in life, and how to finally grow into the soul you were meant to have. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll think differently about yourself, the people around you, and the pace of your growth. So let's get into it. When I was younger, I thought adulthood was something that just clicked on. Like you turn 18 or 21 or 25, and boom, you suddenly have it all together. You stop making stupid decisions. You magically understand responsibility. You stop being selfish. You stop being reactive. You stop running from problems. But what I realized is it doesn't work like that. Your body ages automatically. Your soul doesn't. You can wake up one day with a job, a car, maybe even a family, and still feel like a teenager inside, still insecure, still confused, still stubborn, still unwilling to face yourself. And nobody tells you this part. We live in a world where everyone expects you to act your age. But what does that even mean? If maturity was really just tied to numbers, we wouldn't see 40-year-olds throwing tantrums online. We wouldn't see grown adults ghosting people, lying to themselves, or avoiding responsibility. But we do, all the time. And sometimes that grown adult is us. So let's be real for a second. If you've ever felt like you're behind in life, like other people are more grown up than you, or like you've been living in the body of an adult but the mind of a child, I want you to know, you're not broken, you're just still growing. And growth doesn't follow a calendar. For me, maturity started when I stopped lying to myself. Not lying in the obvious sense, but lying in the subtle ways. Telling myself I'd change tomorrow. Telling myself I wasn't ready to face certain truths. Telling myself my behavior was just who I am, when deep down I knew I was capable of more. That's the first big sign of immaturity, refusing to face reality. And the longer you refuse, the longer you stay stuck in the same loop. I used to think maturity was about learning how to pay bills, or hold down a job, or get through college. But that's not it. Maturity is about how you handle yourself when nobody is watching, how you deal with failure, how you treat people when you're stressed, how you react when things don't go your way. That's the soul level stuff. That's where you see if someone has grown up inside, or if they're still wearing the costume of adulthood without embodying it. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn is that some people never really mature, not because they can't, but because they won't. They cling to the comfort of immaturity, of blaming others, of avoiding responsibility, of numbing themselves instead of healing. And if you're listening to this right now, I hope you decide not to be one of those people, because life is too short to stay in the same emotional place forever. But here's the hope. Maturity doesn't happen all at once. It's not a switch, it's a process. Sometimes it comes in small, humbling moments, like when you realize you were wrong and you actually apologize without excuses, or when you finally walk away from a toxic friendship, not because you hate them, but because you love yourself enough to set boundaries, or when you stop needing to prove yourself to everyone because you've learned that peace is worth more than validation. I remember a time when I thought silence in an argument meant weakness. I thought maturity was about winning, proving my point, getting the last word, showing I was right. But then I started noticing something. The people I respected most, they didn't need to win. They didn't waste their energy on battles that didn't matter. They didn't let their emotions control their mouth. That's when it hit me. Maturity is measured by restraint, not reaction. And that's something we don't teach enough. We teach kids algebra before we teach them emotional intelligence. We hand out diplomas but never explain how to deal with heartbreak, loss, or anger. So, it's no wonder so many of us walk around in adult bodies but feel unequipped for adult life. Maybe you feel that right now. Maybe you're in your late 20s or 30s or even 40s, and you're wondering why you still feel like a teenager on the inside. Let me tell you, it's not too late. Maturity isn't bound by age, it's bound by choice. Every day you choose whether to stay in your old patterns or to grow through them. I had to learn that growth often starts with pain. You don't mature when everything is easy. You mature when life forces you to let go of childish ways. When you lose something you thought you couldn't live without. When you face yourself in the mirror and realize you can't keep blaming other people forever. Those are the cracks where maturity seeps in. But here's the struggle. Nobody claps for you when you grow in private. Nobody sees it when you choose to forgive instead of holding a grudge. Nobody notices when you delete the text you know you shouldn't send. Nobody gives you a medal for being patient when you used to be reckless. But those are the exact moments that transform you. And that's why so many people ignore them. Because we're addicted to recognition. We want to be seen, validated, celebrated. But maturity is doing the right thing even if nobody ever knows. It's growing for yourself, not for applause. I'll be honest, I've had seasons in my life where I thought I was mature, but I wasn't. I was just older. I had responsibilities, but no self-awareness. I had opinions, but no wisdom. I had confidence, but it was built on pride, not humility. And it wasn't until I started losing things, relationships, opportunities, even peace of mind, that I realized maturity was something deeper than I'd imagined. If you're watching this and it stings a little, good. It means you're ready to confront yourself. It means there's something inside you that knows you were meant for more. Because real maturity doesn't mean becoming boring or emotionless. It means becoming grounded, stable, centered. It means knowing who you are and who you don't want to be anymore. And maybe you're asking yourself right now, so how do I actually mature? The truth is, it starts with honesty, radical honesty. Ask yourself, where am I still a child in my thinking? Where do I still react instead of respond? Where am I still running from responsibility? Write it down, be specific, because maturity doesn't come from vague wishes, it comes from facing the exact places you've been avoiding. When you start doing that, something shifts. You stop seeing growth as a chore and start seeing it as freedom. You stop living in denial and start living in truth. And slowly, the inside begins to match the outside. That's the journey I want to take you on in this video. Because if you can learn to grow your soul, not just your body, you'll live a life that's not only fuller, but freer. You know what's funny? Nobody ever told us that maturity was optional. They told us growing up was automatic. That one day you just turn 18 or 21 or 25 and boom, you're an adult. But no one warned us that there are people walking around in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, still carrying the same hurt, the same habits, and the same immaturity they had at 15. And maybe no one told you that you don't have to be one of those people. You can choose growth, you can choose maturity, but you have to want it. You have to fight for it. Because if you don't, life doesn't just hand it to you wrapped in a bow. Life hands you experiences, and it's your job to turn them into wisdom. And I think one of the hardest truths is this: just because you've been through something doesn't mean you've learned from it. We confuse experience with growth all the time. People say, oh, I've been through a lot, but that doesn't mean they've matured. You can get burned by fire 100 times and still touch it the 101st time. Maturity isn't about what you've been through. It's about what you've understood, what you've processed, what you've allowed to shape you instead of break you. So let me ask you something real. When you go through something hard, a breakup, a job loss, a betrayal, do you sit with it long enough to learn the lesson? Or do you numb it with distractions, pretend it didn't happen, or blame everybody else for it? because that's the difference. Immaturity hides from pain. Maturity embraces it, not because it's fun, but because it knows that hidden inside every pain is a piece of wisdom that you can't get anywhere else. And here's the raw part. If you don't deal with your wounds, they will deal with you. If you don't heal from your past, you'll repeat it. That's why some people keep dating the same type of person, keep losing the same type of job, keep getting into the same arguments, because they never matured enough to break the cycle. They're still reacting with a wounded soul, even though they've got a grown body. I used to think maturity meant being serious all the time, no jokes, no fun, just walking around like some wise old monk. But maturity isn't about losing joy. It's about finding balance. It's about knowing when to laugh and when to listen. It's about being able to celebrate without losing yourself and to mourn without breaking completely. It's about self-control, patience, humility. And none of those things come just because you're older. They come because you've chosen to grow up on the inside. Here's a trap a lot of people fall into. They think time heals. And while time does soften pain, it doesn't teach wisdom by itself. If you don't reflect, if you don't grow, if you don't look in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently? You will not mature. You'll just be older. And that's a tragedy, because the world doesn't need more old bodies. The world needs mature souls. I've seen this in friendships. I've seen people who are stuck in cycles of gossip, drama, and jealousy well into adulthood. And I realized age doesn't automatically make you kind. It doesn't automatically make you wise. It doesn't automatically make you patient. You have to put in the work. You have to choose it. And this is where I want to challenge you. What is one area of your life where you've been acting your age in body but not in soul? Be honest with yourself. Is it in how you handle anger? Do you explode and lash out like a teenager who hasn't learned self-control yet? Is it in relationships? Do you demand love without giving it back? Is it in responsibility? Do you procrastinate, avoid, or wait for someone else to clean up your mess? Those are signs of immaturity, and they don't disappear until you deal with them. It takes courage to admit, I'm grown in body, but I still need to grow in soul. That's maturity in itself, because humility is the foundation of growth. If you think you've already arrived, you stop learning. But if you can say, I still have work to do, you create space for wisdom to enter. And here's the encouraging part. Maturity doesn't mean perfection. Nobody is perfect. But maturity means being aware. It means taking responsibility. It means when you mess up, you own it, you apologize, and you do better. That's what separates a grown child from a true adult. I want you to remember this line. It's one I keep in my heart. Maturity is measured by how you handle what you cannot control. Think about it. Anyone can be calm when life is easy. Anyone can be polite when everything is going their way. But maturity shows up when the opposite happens, when someone insults you, when plans fall apart, when you don't get what you wanted. Do you crumble? Do you lash out? Or do you breathe, step back, and respond with grace? That's the test. And those tests come every day. I'll tell you something personal. There was a season in my life when I thought I was grown just because I was paying bills. I thought being able to cover rent and keep food in the fridge made me an adult. And sure, that's part of it, but then I realized I was still carrying grudges. I was still avoiding hard conversations. I was still letting pride dictate my choices. And it hit me one day. I was grown on the outside, but I was still a teenager on the inside. That realization broke me, but it also freed me, because once I saw it, I could work on it, and working on it is what changed everything. So if you're watching this, maybe this is your wake-up call. Maybe this is the moment where you realize that maturity isn't automatic, and you've got some work to do inside. And that's not an insult, that's hope. Because if you're still breathing, it means you still have time to grow. And the Bible says it plainly. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. 1 Corinthians 13:11, NIV. That verse isn't about age. It's about maturity. It's about making the decision to grow on the inside. Thank you for listening. Support the channel, support the movement, support the brand, folks. I'll see you next time. Stay blessed.